Hey there, ecologist. Welcome back to science class, where we've been talking about ecosystem restoration. Today, we are going to review some of the work that we've already submitted, and then we're going to write a scientific argument based on evidence, which is something that we need to know how to do. I'm super excited to share this with you. So let's talk about some of the warm-ups that we have seen and submitted. This warm up here was the first one we did. I'm hoping you remember it. So we talked about this diagram here. A diagram is a scientific picture that shows us something. The first question says, what do the rabbits seem to eat in order to get energy? Well, we have two options. If we look at rabbits here, we see that there's an arrow pointing to foxes, and there are arrows pointing from grasses and carrots to the rabbit. Now, most of us know that carrots eat rabbit, or that rabbits eat carrots, excuse me. Most of us know rabbits eat carrots, right? Think about Bugs Bunny. He's always got a carrot with him. We also know that foxes probably are not eaten by rabbits, right? That doesn't really make sense. So if we trace these arrows back, I think the arrow pointing from the carrot to the rabbit shows that rabbits eat carrots. So A is a great answer. But let's look at what else is pointing to the rabbits. Grasses is also pointing to the rabbits, and I see that's my answer choice C. So if I look, I think that A and B are probably the right answers. And there's a typo there. It says A and C. It's supposed to say A and B. A and B, carrots and grasses, are what rabbits eat because that's what's pointing to the rabbits. Then it asks, name two organisms that the owls eat to get energy. Let's think about it. If the thing's pointing to the rabbit is what it eats, let's look at the owl. What's pointing to the owl? Mice and grasshoppers. A lot of you got that question right. So we know if it's pointing to an animal, that's where the animal is getting its energy from. That's what an animal is eating. So what do you think would happen to the owls if all the plants died? Let's look. The plants are down here, grasses and grains. And the grasshoppers eat those things. The mice eat those things. So if all the plants died, that tells me that the mice and grasshoppers would not have any food. That means that the mice and grasshoppers would not survive. If there were no mice and no grasshoppers, would the owls have anything to eat? No. So let's look at our choices. The owls would survive because they do not eat plants. I don't think that's the best answer because if the plants die, the mice and grasshoppers die. Let's keep looking. The owls would die because they would not have plants to eat. Well, owls don't eat plants from what it looks like. So let's go to the next one. The owls would die because the food they eat will die. If mice and grasshoppers are the foods that owls eat, and plants are what mice and grasshoppers eat, then if the plants die, the mice and grasshopper will die, which means the owl will die. So I think C is my best answer. Let's talk about this warm-up from last week. It says a student fills a jar with small rocks, soil, and several plants. Then the jar is sealed, which means they put a lid on it. The jar is placed by the window that gets 3 hours of sunlight each morning. If the jar is kept sealed, do you think the plants will continue to grow or die? Let's think about this. We know plants need 3 things to survive. Those 3 things are water, air, and food. And how do we know that plants get food? From the sunlight. So for plants to survive, they need water, air, and sunlight. If it's getting sunlight each morning, then that's taking care of food, sunlight. What about air and water? If the lid is always on, those plants are not getting air and those plants are not getting water. So even though they're getting sunlight and creating their own food, they're not getting air and they're not getting water, which means the plants are going to not survive. All right, let's look down here at this diagram. Some organisms that live in an area of the ocean. So this is kind of like the one we just saw with the owls and the grasshoppers. Let's check it out. And let's remember that if it's pointing to something, that means the one that's getting pointed to is eating the one below it. Let's see. How do the squid in this ecosystem get their energy? Let's find squid right here. And let's think, what is pointing to the squid is crabs. So my answer is going to be A, they eat crabs. What do fish eat is the next question. And I'm gonna look, and even if I forget which way the arrows go, I can think about it. Well, I don't think that fish eat seagulls or seals. That does not seem like it makes sense to me. So I'm gonna go back. It looks like fish eat zooplankton and also krill. So we need to make sure we're looking at all of the possible ways that an animal can be getting that energy. You guys rocked those reviews or those warm-ups, and it was really awesome to see what y'all thought. And now I know what we still need to learn. So let's talk really quickly about the vocabulary we have learned so far. I know this slide looks kind of crazy, but we're going to go through it together, so no worries. A blank is a place where blank and blank live together in their environment. And if you've been watching the videos, you know that an ecosystem is a place where what and what live? Animals and plants, living things, live together in their environment. Then we learn the word ecologist. An ecologist is a scientist who studies ecosystems. So that's why we are ecologists this year, because we are scientists who are studying ecosystems. Ecologists observe ecosystems and their parts. So they look at ecosystems and draw conclusions about them. To observe is to use any of the 5 senses to gather information, but like I said, we're pretty much usually using eyes. All right, so our big questions so far are, how do organisms in an ecosystem get the matter and energy that they need to grow and thrive? That is a question that we have answered. What 3 things does a living thing need to get its energy? Did you say air, water, and food? Because you should have. We know that. That question has been answered. Air, water, and food, the 3 things that a living thing uses to get matter and energy. Now, the next question is what we talked about last week. Why aren't the jaguars and sloths in the project site growing and thriving? That's what we're going to talk about today. So if you remember, we talked about this Costa Rican rainforest ecosystem. These are the parts that we're going to be talking about. We see the Cecropia tree, we see soil and a millipede, we see a 3-toed sloth and a jaguar. So I want you to just stop and think, how do you think these might interact with one another? So I'm thinking about that, and I'm going to keep that in my brain. Now, we talked about the Natural Resources Rescue, a volunteer organization that is helping with ecosystem restoration. They're trying to restore an area where an ecosystem was taken out. So they went to that project site and they planted Cecropia trees and other rainforest plants on the land that used to be a cow pasture. We talked about that. See, here it is 10 years ago. It was burned down to become a cow pasture. And then after the cattle ranchers left, they planted Cecropia trees to try to bring it back. So what we're going to do today is look at this table here, talk about it, and then we are going to write our own scientific claims. So let's look. Here we've got jaguars. The average weight of the animal in the project area, so that's thinking about here, is 168 kilograms, which calculates to 370 pounds. The average weight of an adult animal in the rainforest, the healthy rainforest, is 205 kilograms or 452 pounds. So that is much bigger. If we're thinking about sloths, same thing. The average weight of the sloths in the project area is 4.42 kilograms, which is 9.75 pounds. In the healthy rainforest, it's 4.76 kilograms, which is 10.5 pounds. So I want you to stop and think, what do you notice about this information in the table? Take about 30 seconds to think and maybe write down what you notice about the information in this table, and then take 30 more seconds to write why that might be. I'm going to give you about 1 minute to do that. All right, we're going to come on back, and I hope that you took notes on what you think might be happening in this area. Now, we're going to think about the data that we just saw and this table here that we talked about last week. This is the organism count in the project area, the old cattle farm. So where they burned down the trees and are trying to grow the rainforest back. This is the organism count. So in that area, there's 1 jaguar, when in the same land area of a healthy rainforest, there's 4 jaguars. There are 16 sloths in that project area, where there are 28 sloths in a healthy rainforest. 188 cecropia trees in the project area, where there are 596 cecropia trees in the healthy rainforest. And like I said, that land area is the same. So the reason that we're seeing these higher numbers is not because it's a bigger piece of land. There's something wrong in the project area. So here's what your job is today. Based on this data, do you think the project area is a complete success? You are going to write a claim to answer that question. And here are the 3 pieces that you need to have. A claim answers the question, is the project area a complete success? Basically meaning, is the project area the same as the healthy rainforest? So look here, I want you to think, what is your claim? Is the project area a complete success? Is the project area the same as the healthy rainforest? Think about your claim. Now you need to use evidence to support that claim. You need to tell me what in this data makes you think your answer. So if you think the project area is a complete success, tell me why using those numbers. If you don't think it's a complete success, tell me why using those numbers. You have to use evidence from the data tables to tell me why you think your claim or your answer is correct. And then you need to reason, why does the data support that claim? So depending on what you think, is the project area a complete success? Use evidence from the data to show me why you think your claim is right, and then tell me why that data supports it. All right, I am so excited to see your scientific claims. This is such an exciting lesson to me. So I want you to go to your classwork tab. There's a document that looks just like this that you can edit to type in your claim, your answer, your evidence, what in the data makes you think that answer is right, and your reasoning. Why does your data support that claim? Cannot wait to read these ecologists, and I will see you next time.